And Deborah, take it away if you will.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Happy to join here. Thank you, Russell from Hip Hop Caucus. My name is Deborah Moore. I'm campaign strategist at Third Act. Third Act was started in December 2021 by Bill McKibben and Vanessa Arcara with a particular focus on organizing older experienced Americans aged 60 and up who are loyal voters, and also older Americans hold 70% of the wealth in the US, whether that's right or wrong, it is the way it is. So we want older Americans to flex their political and financial muscles on climate change and safeguarding our democracy. So we have a particular interest in and focus on these big four banks, US-based global banks. And so I think you've already heard a bit about that. And I was going to show a couple of slides to just kind of bring that home. Do I have sharing capacity? I think I do. Yeah, let me see if I can get that going here. Get this right screen up, too many tabs, but here we go. And to show the slide. So this is a different way of saying what Matt said a minute ago with his graph, showing that already committed oil, gas, and coal are pushing us over those lines, the 1.5, 1.7, and 2. And so clearly stopping new investments in fossil fuel expansion is what we need to do, along with a lot of the things that Russell was saying we need to do. And this report, new Banking on Climate Chaos report, just came out from Rainforest Action Network and a whole bunch of other coalition partners. And every year they analyze the financing of the top 60 banks in the fossil fuel sector. And so you see, as has been true for many years, that JP Morgan Chase, Citi, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America, which are global banks, but they're based in the US, continue to lend billions and billions of dollars. And collectively, the 60 banks have invested $5.5 trillion since the Paris Accord was signed. And these top four banks have invested about $1 trillion, 1.2 trillion amongst those four. So clearly, you know, they're still investing in a much dirtier, dismal future than what I think we envision. And so one thing I wanted to chat about is how your decision of where you bank is one of the biggest environmental decisions that you make. And last year, an organization called Bank Forward, together with a couple of partners, put out this report called the Carbon Bankroll, where they looked at the emissions that flowed from the cash sitting in banks. So the deposits of large companies. And then this year, they translated that same methodology so that you can actually do your own analysis of what the cash in your bank is doing. And so just to demonstrate through some screenshots, you can estimate your own carbon footprint of your cash. And I'll give the link later, but you go to this web page and it looks like this, and you click on that arrow. And then at the top, you can choose a bank from the drop-down menu. So this one is Citigroup. And on the left, you see the blue bar. And so for $8,000, if you have $8,000 in your Citibank savings account or checking, that results in financed emissions of 1.6 megatons of carbon a year. And if you switch to a greener bank, that goes down to 0.5. The reason it's not 0.0 is that even community banks might invest in housing or things that have energy consumption, but they're not investing directly in fossil fuel development. And so this represents almost a 73% decrease in your carbon footprint by changing to a better bank. And that can be equivalent to like driving almost 3,000 miles less a year, or 2.5 trips from New York to LA. So it's kind of a cool calculator that you can use. And the web page is thirdact.org/act/carbon calculator, something like that. It's on the screen. So this just represents, that when you actually take action to move your money, you can reduce your carbon footprint. And so there are a lot of different things that we can do individually and collectively. And I thought, some of these are here, but we could I'm going to stop sharing screen and we can talk through what some of these mean: the sign your pledge, move your money, pressure the banks, join the movement. So that's a little bit of an overview.
Cool. I was just trying to pull up your link there, paste it over, so I was off screen there for a second. But yeah, no, that's good. And I think it's important that people start thinking about and there's certain things that you can do. If you don't take it, if you drive 10 miles less tomorrow, you saved a little bit of carbon, right? But then to keep saving, you have to drive 10 miles less the next day and the next day. If you switch banks, you put in the effort once, and then after that, month after month, year after year, unless the bank switches policies, which at this point I think would be unlikely if you switch to the right bank, you're doing something more positive, right? So, it's act once, have impact ongoing. And that's why something like switching banks is so important. You can have that continued impact both from the carbon side and potentially from the environmental justice, social side as well, as Russell had brought up earlier.
Yeah, I think, I was just going to say, for Third Act, we have a Banking on Our Future campaign, and the kind of legs of the campaign are, we want to pressure the big banks to stop doing what they're doing. And part of that is through collective action, raising awareness, visibility, and direct pressure and conversation. And so Third Act, with tons of partners, many on the call, including Hip Hop Caucus, on March 21st this year, we had a huge national day of action. We had 102 events in 30 states where people were outside of banks, all different kinds of people. And we got a lot of media coverage. And media is part of, the visibility to put the pressure on the banks. And I think we have their attention, but we need to keep up that pressure. And right now is the shareholder season where there's the annual general meetings of the banks. And so there are a lot of ways people can get involved and email their state treasurer and pressure them to vote their shares in favor of climate resolutions that are pending in the banks. So we want people to, vote their individual shares. If you own stocks, we have a way to help you do that. We want to pressure the large pension funds to vote in favor of these climate resolutions. And, the big banks, their ways. HSBC in Europe is the biggest banks, and they're beginning to change their ways. They had a big announcement last December. So we want to pressure the big banks to stop investing in fossil fuel expansion. And that's the push part. There's the pull part, which is let's align our money with our values and find better institutions that are investing in healthy communities, clean energy, and climate solutions. So there's kind of both sides of that, and lifting up the credit unions and others that are really doing good work, better banks. So there are a lot of resources on our website where people can find better banks, including Bank Black and Green. There's others like Bank.Green and also Bank for Good, where you can find better banks and better credit cards. It's easy to start sometimes with a better credit card. and then kind of coming in the year ahead, we're thinking around how institutional bank clients, large cities, universities, hospitals, congregations, and companies like Costco that have affiliate cards, how can all these large institutional clients also start pressuring their banks to say, hey, we don't like this. We don't like what you're doing. Let's change. So some of those companies may have a bigger impact than an average customer like me who may not have as much money in there. So that's kind of a next phase of this campaign.
Sure, and I love how you're cooperating with and collaborating with other groups, because I think that's really important to kind of get a tipping point, to get national media involved, to get the banks really making a difference, you know, feeling the pressure a little bit. Can you explain a little bit like a credit card? Let's say you know, because I understand when you're putting your money in the bank, but the credit card, they're either loaning you money or maybe it's a free loan if you pay off on time. You know what I mean? If you're paying off on time, I guess they collect some money on the fees on the transactions. Is that the kind of the main reason to kind of pull away from them?
Yeah, credit cards are important. They are a revenue source, a profit center for the banks. It's, I think, often an easier way for people to start aligning their money with their values. You know, you don't have to start moving like all your checking and savings and everything. Credit cards are an easier way to start. And yes, you're right. The companies make 3 to 5% fee on every transaction. So it is a profit center. They also spend a lot of money acquiring new customers, like $1,000 sometimes per customer, if you look at the advertising and the outreach they do. So we know it's a profit center, and it's been kind of a unleveraged, you know, campaign tool or leverage point, if you will. So yes, exactly. And even so, people think, oh, but I pay it on time, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to make a dent, but because of those transaction fees, it does. And you know, and it's an effect on their brand and their reputation if they have more and more people cutting up their cards and moving to different companies.
Sure, and I think the way business is structured too, you know, if a business is growing at, say, you know, 10% a year, it's valued one way, but if the growth is flat even, or like, you know, God forbid, a little bit negative, it starts getting valued very differently. So just even taking 1 or 2 or 3 percentage points off of growth from these companies is enough where they, you know, it's going to cause a revaluation of them. And they don't like that. So they don't want to see any shrinking of revenue. You know, so it doesn't have to be 100% of the people acting. It can just be kind of a nice little minority of people acting, and they'll feel that and you know, be motivated to take a response, I feel.
Yeah, and I think, you know, part of it took a long time to educate the public to really understand that burning fossil fuels to support our economy, you know, setting things on fire is what causes the pollution that is leading to the kinds of climate extremes and changes we're experiencing. And now we want to educate people in the same way that banks really should have like a smokestack coming out of them. The pollution is coming out of the banks. The cash equals carbon pollution in the atmosphere, just like those smokestacks on a power plant. You know, so it's going to take a while because people don't usually think about, oh, my bank is related to climate change. So we really want to help make that connection for people, that cash equals carbon in these bad banks. And, you know, once people, you know, sometimes people get a credit card maybe when they're in college or when they're young, and you just kind of stay with it forever. People are loyal, and that's what banks count on. You know, they go to college campuses, hey, get a bank account with us, because they know that once you're there, you're going to stay for decades. So Third Act's demographic is we're working with older Americans. And so we do have customers who've been with banks or a credit card company for 30, 40 years. And so we're helping them make that switch. We have a lot of tools and resources, but we also hope young folks, start out with a better bank or a credit union, because then chances are they're going to stay loyal and stick with them for a long time.
Yeah, and a lot of the banks too, you can get a better interest rate from T-bills. You don't even necessarily have to be at some of these dirty banks. I mean, I guess you can argue what the government does with some of that money, but I think it does at least make a statement to the banks if people move away from them, and raises their awareness. And with banks, I think that with the Silicon Valley bank failure, I don't know if any of you guys saw the video of that, but there's a video on it's a TikTok video of that bank failure, and it's, I think, a box of sandwiches, and there's some monkeys. And first one monkey kind of slowly comes up and takes a sandwich, and then another one takes a sandwich or two, and all of a sudden there's a rush to take the sandwiches. So you don't want to be the last person taking your money out of a bank. You want to actually be one of the first people taking your money out of the bank. Of course, with Silicon Valley Bank, they bailed everyone out, all the depositors. But it's no guarantee if these big banks, even though they're systemically important, there's no guarantee that they'll bail everyone out or have the means to bail everyone out. So I think you want to get your money out of them early and not be the last one standing with no sandwich in their hand, which happened to a few of those monkeys in that video. But if there's, I'll let you wrap it up, Deborah, and then we got Howard Fisher coming on board shortly. So any last thoughts there?
I guess I'm sharing some things in the chat if people want to check out that calculator tool, and we also have a link to find better banks and credit cards, and I'll also put in a link to a couple blogs that we've written on why now is the time to move your money and to work on this. But yeah, now is the time, with the IPCC report coming out again, showing, how urgent this is. And, I think throughout this whole Earth Day 24-hour, as well as, Earth Month, we know that we have the solutions. We have the technology at hand. We need political will, and we need the financial investment. And with the technologies that we have right now on hand, we could already be making a huge, huge difference for bending those curves. And so I guess I just want to, encourage everyone to join us, join Third Act, join Hip Hop Caucus. You've other groups on this call. There's so many ways to get involved, and getting involved feels good. Action is an antidote to despair, and when we do things together, we truly can change the world. And so I look forward via this global audience and call to making good things happen, making good trouble together.
Cool. Awesome, Deborah. Russell, thank you as well. And now we're on to Howard Fisher, impact investor with Bezos Capital and Gratitude.